and we will try to get through as many of your questions as we can. We will start today with Emma Bacalari.
Hi, I appreciate you all talking about this. I just wanted to ask, there were some other concerns that athletes were raising on social media in addition to the weight room about the disparity in the food versus the men's tournament and the swag bag. Can you say anything about that and about the feedback you received outside of the weight room and what's being done to address that?
Sure, I'll start, and I apologize. I had a computer issue there, so I'm doing this on the phone right now. We have done, when we heard those concerns, we have done a side-by-side comparison of some of the, as you referred to, swag bag, and there we do proactively with the men's basketball staff work together when putting together those student athlete gift bags. There are some minor differences to that. And those are because of things we identified that were more differences relative to the location that we were. An example is a difference between an umbrella and a blanket. Some of the other issues you noted, there's been some concern about the food here. As you know, as we're putting the stuff together and the offerings, as we are at 7 hotels that have been bought out here in San Antonio and working with the hotels and supplying that, as I said, you know, with teams on arrival and some teams have only been here for 2 calendar days, hearing their concerns, we've begun to immediately address that with the hotel and also identifying additional flexibility so that other food can be brought to them. Teams have had the ability since they came out of quarantine to have outside food brought in. There were some requirements relative to the hotel also providing those services, but as I said, we've been working to adjust and relax those, frankly. We've also, last night after the coaches call, immediately started working with our San Antonio local organizing committee, who is working with the local restaurant industry here. And via each team has what's called a virtual team host, those hosts so that we can supply to the teams directly even more options than what we had provided before relative to having food delivered to the controlled environment. So those are examples, and the last one being another of which once we heard the concerns, we've immediately taken action to address.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Doug Feinberg with the Associated Press.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for doing this. I have 2 questions. The first one is, did anyone approach you guys before this all blew up on social media? Did anyone go, hey, you know, this weight room's not up to standards. Can you guys do anything? Or did it just right away without any sort of giving you guys a chance to address it? And the second one is bigger picture. It's not just this tournament. I mean, the men's tournament is 68 teams, the women have 64. I know it's a committee thing, but that's not equal. And there are other things. The NIT is men. I know the NCAA owns it, but the women have to pay for their way to play in the NIT. Is there any sort of chance to maybe address the bigger picture of inequality that is being raised here than just the small, and not that they're not important, but a weight room and food and a swag bag? It seems there are bigger issues than just that, so to speak.
Doug, I'll take your first question, and if it's okay, I'll let Dan address your second question. Becoming aware of the concerns and just the additional equipment, weight and training equipment that was available in the manner by which we provided it to the teams. We became aware first through social media. And then as that began to unfold, that's where, as I mentioned before, we immediately turned to trying to gather the teams within a span of a couple hours, the head coaches and the lead administrators, so that we could hear what else was going on and what their concerns were. Taking that action immediately is indicative of my staff and also the committee, because the committee was also hearing those concerns as things unfolded over the course of a few hours yesterday. And Dan, if you'd like to take the second part.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. And thanks for your question, Doug. It's a great question. And I think it's a question that, that we need to have a really good dialogue and discussion with the membership overall. We have I think, a good governance structure in place. Lynn and I both serve as the liaisons with the men's and women's basketball oversight committees. They report to the Division I Council, report to the Division I board, and the like. You know, the really good news here is when we went to the Division I board in our planning several weeks ago around both these championships, on the budget side of this, given that it was going to be more expensive for all championships this year in the pandemic, the Division I Finance Committee, their general direction was that these two championships should be conducted from a financial standpoint in a similarly equitable way as they've been done in the past. So we've got that commitment from presidents and at the board level. The question that you asked specifically about the field size and the NIT, those would be decisions that would have to be made in conjunction with the membership, because those are resource allocation questions essentially, and equity questions. And I think they're very, very legitimate questions to ask, and we've talked about them in the past, obviously, and during this time is probably a very good opportunity to bring them back up again. Those are not decisions that Lynn nor I nor the men's and women's basketball committees could make independently. That would be done in conjunction with our larger and broader governance structure throughout the council and the board. And we will pledge to do that. I think it's a very good question. I think it's timely to raise those issues again with no commentary as to where they would ultimately be determined. Make sure that those bodies are engaged in that discussion.
Thank you. Our next question will be Chantel Jennings.
Hey, thank you for your time. My question is for Dan. Dan, you said in your opening statement that you wanted to use this opportunity to better communicate and better collaborate internally. Obviously, this was an unprecedented year, but it was unprecedented for both the men and the women. So I'm curious what more, you touched on the budget stuff, but what more can you tell us about the specific communications between the men's and the women's planning sides coming into this tournament? What kind of transparency was there in terms of, this is what we're doing for the weight room, this is what we're doing for food, this is what we're doing for XYZ? Yeah,
thanks, Chantel. I mean, I think we work very hard to try to openly communicate and be transparent in all planning. I feel like, you know, under my leadership, that may have fallen short at this time. As I thought about it just overnight and lost sleep over this, you know, I think some of it may be a result of working remotely. Our staffs have not been together since last summer. We have technology that helps to mitigate that for sure. You know, we can do better. We have to do better. And I need to make sure that we're making that a priority. I think Lynn does as well. You know, Lynn and I communicate, our staffs communicate, but in this abbreviated planning time period and without being physically together, I think some of those you know, factors may have come into play. Are they excuses? Quite possibly, but they're things that I take to heart as being things that we need to improve upon. So that's what I meant about communication and collaboration. I think we make good efforts there, but with a high standard, I'm not sure we've met them in these last few weeks.
Thank you, Dan. Our next question will come from Stefan with the Indy Star.
Hey guys, this is maybe more of a question for Lynn, but Dan, you can take it yourself if you'd like to. With some of the swag bag stuff, there was just talks in terms of, you know, what the men's side got being labeled as the big dance, March Madness, and whatnot. While on the women's side, it's more so just being labeled as NCAA women's basketball. I mean, do you guys feel like there's a bigger branding issue there that maybe needs to be acknowledged?
There are some unique brands and also efforts that take place that are unique to men's and women's basketball. Certainly acknowledge that, and that's a reality. You know, the Division I women's basketball brand and what we have in there, frankly, that's an effort that we've pushed out over the last couple of years so that we can have that unique identifier associated with our sport. That we have even associated with our women's Final Four, a brand, a moniker that's called For It All, FOUR, For It All, that is women's basketball unique and specific. And then Dan can certainly address on the men's side, some of those branding elements that they use.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Lynn Lynn's answer is a good one. And I think we try to strike this delicate balance between being all the same and yet having some independence, so that there's this unique nature to these championships and to the sports. We also have somewhat of a challenge in that we have different, equally valued, greatly valued broadcast partners. ESPN for the women's championship and CBS and Turner for the men's championship. And so branding around broadcast is an issue for those partners as well as for the two championships. So I'm not sure I have deep concerns there. I think we're trying to meet the needs of the communities and membership around branding the events so that they're special and unique. And but again, in assessment of this unique year and the challenges we've had, I think it's another thing to add to the list, quite possible.
And the one thing I would add, because I think it's important too, I do want to emphasize, although we have this blemish, we have made tremendous strides in women's basketball and continue to do so, and being very diligent with that, with the leadership of Nina, the committee, others in the membership. And one simple example that we're very proud of this year is that with that partner on ESPN, all of our games are going to be nationally broadcasted. They used to be regionalized. So being nationally broadcast means that a viewer starting this year for the first time is going to be able to just change the channel on the ESPN networks and be able to see the game. So those in the West Coast that want to watch the East Coast, those were issues we had in the past. And that is representative of the growth of our game overall, not just collegiate women's basketball. For the first time this year as well, ABC is going to be broadcasting 6 of our games. So again, although this is a blemish, I do want to emphasize we have made some strides. There's the passion and the commitment, the investment that we are doing. But as noted, we fell short on this item.
Thank you. Our next question will be Molly Hensley Clancy from the Washington Post.
Yeah, hi. I think that this, clearly touched a nerve on broader issues of inequality that other people have asked about. I was wondering, did those issues come up yesterday at all in the conversations, between the teams and the organization, beyond kind of the specific issues? And, do you see those conversations continuing, after this tournament?
Inherent in all of this, if I understand your kind of your point, your question is that, yeah, I think there are inherently questions and appropriate challenges relative to equality. I have lived in this world. I said I was a women's basketball student athlete, albeit back in the early 90s. I've experienced when you don't have something that's the same. And I know Nina and others can speak to this as well. This is also why it hits such a nerve with me. So I think it's appropriate that the conversations that's been a theme, and it is there's an accountability aspect that as the conversation moves forward, that is front of mind. Nina may want to add some things just also relative to her experience as a campus professional in this realm as well.
Yes, just to follow up on what Lynn said, I mean, the 10 of us committee members are on campuses or in conference offices. And so these are conversations that we're having relative to numerous sports. And so we bring that perspective to the committee. And so we are charged with providing that to the NCAA staff to ensure that we're hosting in this moment an equitable championship. And so that's where we are working quickly to fix it in this moment, but I think we need to continue to have broader conversations. I think the coaches recognized that in our conversation last night, and it was noted, and we are all committed to continuing to push the envelope so that we get this right for our student athletes. Our student athletes deserve it.
Thank you. Our next question will be Dorothy Gentry.
Hi, thanks so much for your time. I just want to ask, are you all aware of and understand not just the confusion and the outrage behind all of this, but really the hurt and pain that women athletes and their fans feel? And how do you respond to that aspect of the situation? Thanks.
I guess I'll start. Aware and the feeling of it. I think you could tell by my opening remarks and the associated emotion that I do. I wear it, and it is heavy. So, and appropriately so. As I think, as different as we've seen throughout our country this past year in particular, in a variety of ways of individuals, human beings, people where being discriminated against, marginalized, where there's inequities. When it is personal, it is as real as it can get. So it hurts. And when people passionately care about something, in this case, women's basketball, our fans, our student athletes who are playing this game, and it is our responsibility to give them a great championship experience and one they can be proud of. It's disappointing. It is, I mean, that I don't even have the words to describe how painful it is personally.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. So for this one, we're going to go to Cheryl Coward.
Thanks for addressing these difficult issues. You talked about meeting with coaches and administrators from teams last night. Are you going to have like a scheduled follow-up over the course of the next couple of weeks to continue that vein so nothing falls through the cracks and you don't hear about things on social media first?
Yeah, that's certainly the plan. I mean, at minimum, and we shared with them last night, we plan to do that coming out of the second round games, but certainly if we needed to do beforehand, we would do that as well. Shared with the coaches last night that reinforced, very, very strongly reinforced that our staff is accessible. The committee, we want them, the committee also, the coaches to reach out to them, their administrators, whatever the case is. We're trying to do the right thing. And as I noted earlier, there's numerous different things that we've adjusted on the fly now that we're here in San Antonio and with the teams all being here and everything. And we have a responsibility to continue to do that on an ongoing basis to improve what we are doing and try to address what we can address within the construct of the controlled environment that we're in right now. So we are, and that is either on the individual basis and then collectively as a group. Through the conversations last night, I also want to note that the Women's Basketball Coaches Association Executive Director Danielle Donahue and their current president, Coach Tricia Culp from University of Toledo, they were also on the call. I called Danielle in the afternoon to make sure that, and she was aware because she also was receiving calls from coaches. So I think we appropriately had their Coaches Association on, who we have a good working relationship, but we're going to do this together. We're going to work together to make it better.
Thank you all so much for your time today. That concludes the availability that we have for today. This recording will be made available if I think through the digital hub, and we appreciate your time. So if you have any additional questions, please let us know, but otherwise we will talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, be well.